just like Thursday, the boat in trouble. This time, Nomura was able to wriggle off the hook with 1:30 to go, and now they hold a favored position.
We're not going to have it. They close to each other.
Game here is to get up to full speed. Kayard makes his move first, and he'll be going faster when the gun goes off.
Go down below the line. 20. 17. 14. 13. 4, 3, 2, 1, gun!
Another clean start and another good job by Dellenbaugh.
Goodness me. I'm tapping the wrong buttons every single time. Hi, everybody. What's going on? Let's see. Where was I? Oh, yeah. I was going to share this after Maya's stream and the whole mythicism thing. I thought this would be interesting to play. Just a little something from the Skeptic Haven fundraiser stream. From the horse's mouth, really. Let's see if I can do this right. Gosh. Here we go. Let's just go ahead and do this.
Dare to be skeptical.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me okay?
I got you, David.
You got me.
Lovely to see you. I was half expecting SR to jump in here and introduce us all, but hey, here we are. We can introduce each other or whatever. So why not start? I'm Stephanie Helms. I've got a little thing. I'm going to be with you for an hour. And regrettably for you guys, you poor sons of guns. So enough said about me. I'll probably talk about my ugly ass later on. But what we have here are two amazing guests here to support Skeptic Haven. And David, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, and you can leave why you do it. It can be you do it for fun. I mean, whatever.
Sure. My name is Dave Fitzgerald, and I'm an author and atheist activist and public speaker. And it kind of scares me how long I've been doing it, actually. Since the 90s, I've been doing all those things. I'm probably best known for my book Nailed and the trilogy Jesus Mything in Action. And I'm working on a new book as we speak and hope to have it out by the end of the year called Playing God, A Evolutionary History of World Religion.
Cool. And Cease?
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So I have a YouTube channel called Axioms on Trial, where we discuss philosophy, theology, science, politics, and things of that nature. I also am completing my master's degree in philosophy. I already have a bachelor's in philosophy. I appreciate you having me on. That's about it.
So maybe I could ask both of you guys, what brings you into the atheist space to present content and share things with people? And how do you see Skeptic Haven as being an important part of that community? I wonder if you could maybe just talk about that a little bit.
Sure. As for me, the online secular community is just so much bigger than anything it was when I first started being an atheist activist. It's for so many people, it's the one lifeline that they have. Maybe in real life, they have no connection to anyone. atheist or secular. Though of course that's changing all over the world, largely because we're all so connected now. And I'm delighted to be here for that. I'm delighted to see all this internet connection for that.
Yeah, and for me, pretty much the same thing. I mean, I've been an atheist pretty much my whole life, but only within the last few years I've really become a part of this community. Probably one of the first communities I can say I really have felt a part of. So I appreciate that, and I think what you guys are doing at Skeptic Haven is really great. I think you've had a lot of really interesting guests, and I hope to continue on this journey and be able to make more content and collaborate with like-minded creators. And just the other day I had somebody come into one of my lives that I was doing on my TikTok account, telling me that I was instrumental in their deconversion.
Wow,
and that to me is like kind of one of the highest compliments I can receive.
Right.
To know that I was able to help someone in that way, really motivates me to continue doing what I'm doing. So, yeah.
I totally agree. That's what makes it all worth it. On those days when we were beating our head against the wall and thinking, why do I bother? There's just so much out there that's just antithetical to everything we stand for. And then you get an email like that and it makes it all worth it.
I wonder, just pulling out topics out of my hindquarters. What do you feel? Do you feel more of a challenge in addressing bad thinking among Christians or theists generally, or atheists?
See, so you want to take that one?
I'm sorry, I think you cut out on my end. Could you ask that again?
Yeah, I just wonder if you feel like in the discussions within the atheist community, if you feel more frustration with theists or atheists, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's possible atheists can disagree about an awful lot of things, right? Because it's really just a position on a belief in a particular thing.
No, I would say definitely more frustrated with theists. I think I have more Muslims that come after me than any particular group, but I would say theists in general tend to not like me very much. Although I've had very civil conversations with some. It just I think the nature of what I do, I think, can be inflammatory for some. I think the area where I have the most disagreement with other atheists is when discussing morality. I'm a more realist. I believe in moral facts, and I think a lot of atheists are subjectivists or anti-realists, and so that's where we kind of differ often.
It's funny because there's a real difference between the way that theists annoy me and the way that our fellow atheists can annoy me. I think it hurts my heart a little more when I get into a real knockdown drag out with our fellow atheist. I'm used to it from the theists, and the frustration with them comes from they are saying things that are just not based in reality whatsoever. And so it's hard to even get context to talk with them.
Well, the reason I asked the question, pardon me for interrupting. The reason I asked the question is because I know that both of you, in your own ways, take different stances on different things that are a matter of controversy within the atheist community, as Cece said, and I think David, you'd acknowledge, and it was kind of, but I'm with you on that. I think that the big picture is the challenges we face when we're arguing with theists who stake out a position that leads them to positions that are hurtful to human beings. And that I don't see that quite so much in the atheist community, because and if you do see it in the atheist community, it's like, well, you've got you're standing in quicksand when you
I got to get to the nut of this.
Come on, Stephanie, get to the point for people.
Yeah.
Ask the question. I think ask the question. I think that's our big challenge.
I think one thing
I think
about
that's what led me to Skeptic Haven and this project. Just because I think we need just every voice out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing about debating between atheists and theists, I don't like debating per se. I like having discussions with theists when you can have them. But I think every time there's any kind of dialogue between an atheist and a theist, atheism always wins, no matter how badly it seems to go, because either you're planting a seed in them or you're planting a seed in the audience of everyone who's watching you. And sometimes you just give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves. And they don't even realize that they're doing themselves a disservice. But I think it's important for atheists and theists to have dialogue, for sure.
Let's see, where am I? Oh yeah, is do you think JMEC's going to show up? Your streaming partner. I'm just curious. But...
I hope so. He's a little bit hard to reach. I mean, his work schedule is kind of crazy. So you know, but hopefully he'll be able to join us. But
cool. Well, David's here off the appointed schedule because time is not real.
Right. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was on your guys' channel a few weeks ago talking about time with a number of his.
Really?
So, yeah, I believe it was on. That was fun.
Could revisit that whole thing.
I love that quote that says, "If you don't ask me what time is, I know perfectly what time is. As soon as you ask me what time is, I have no idea what time is."
Right. You know, I guess I can steer the conversation this way a little bit. Something that I find really troubling about the theistic narrative is this idea that, like, unless you believe in these ideologies, then we lead a life of meaninglessness or of no moral grounding. And I run into that over and over with people. I mean, I was talking to somebody just the other day who's a Christian who told me if they were not a Christian, they would feel like their life was hopeless. And I can't wrap my head around that psychology. Again, I did not grow up in a church. I have no religious trauma of any kind. I was always interested in learning about these things, but they were always more from an intellectual standpoint of wanting to understand what it was that people believed. But I haven't felt this kind of hopelessness, or even when I felt it, I had the tools to navigate that without the need to lie to myself about my state of knowledge. And I don't understand how people can just believe in things just because it makes them feel better. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I run into that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more pernicious things about particularly the more fundamentalist strains of Christianity, wherein the whole religion is based on the notion that you are failed. You've failed. Humanity has failed from the get-go. There's no way out. And the only way out, the only way to salvation is being washed in the blood of the Lamb. It's just a crappy way to be trained, and it's a crappy way to grow up. It's crappy stuff to hear because it especially marginalizes women. You know, it especially marginalizes the people that were considered out groups, even within biblical times. It's so much to process there. And people are stuck in it. And in this day and age, the thing that's horrifying is that it's creeping into politics.
Big time.
Well, yeah, that's been going on for a while, for sure. And I think what's sad, I mean, you mentioned women, and I also speak with women that are theists, is that it makes them complicit in their own oppression.
Yeah.
Without their realizing it. They think that what they're doing is God's will, and that therefore it's the just thing to do. And meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, like, you're not even aware of that you're being used not by God, but by men who constructed this culture of oppression that you're just buying into. It's really frustrating.
So, David, here's
Does
the
it really
question:
matter whether Christ lived or didn't?
You know what? The funny thing is, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, we'll be perfectly
Here's the
happy
question.
atheists whether there was one guy behind it all or a whole, smoke-filled back room behind it all. The thing for me is it's simply a matter of wanting to know what really happened. And for me, the more I look into it, again, I didn't start out as a mythicist, a Jesus mythicist. I was curious to know what we could trust in the Gospels and what we couldn't, and what the real Jesus was like. And ironically enough, as soon as you start looking for the real Jesus, you start realizing how dodgy our information is about him, all the biographical facts that we know so well, and all our sources for him. And what's super ironic now, 20 years plus down the line, is I was asked to do a couple different talks for the Global Center for Religious Research and for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, or Recovering from Religion Foundation, rather. And it was a talk I was going to give on, is your founding figure of your religion imaginary or not? And because I wanted to say, I'll just check the top 10 religions and see if anybody else is that pattern. Because one of the things that surprised me about studying the historical Jesus thing was how many times Buddhists would come up to me and say, yeah, we're having the same discussions in our circles about whether the Buddha was real. And how many ex-Muslims would come up to me and say, yeah, we're having the same debates in our circles about whether Muhammad was real. And so, yeah, same thing all over again. When you look at the backstories of all these founder figures, they all seem super dodgy, to the point where I think that not only do I think Jesus was mythical, but I think it's the norm for major world religions to start with a purely mythical founder figure. Does it matter? Not really, but it's fascinating. And that's where our evidence seems to point. And that's what I find endlessly fascinating about the whole thing.
So this might be actually another point of potential disagreement between you and I.
Sure.
And I'm not going to claim that I've put in extensive amount of research in this particular aspect of the conversation, because ultimately for me it doesn't matter.
Right.
But what I have seen, I do believe that Jesus existed, and just a couple months ago we had a scholar to talk about that and whether or not mythicism makes sense. I mean, he doesn't agree with it. He doesn't believe Jesus existed. I would say that kind of the tactic that I take, because I don't really have a dog in that particular fight, but
Same.
the tactic that I take is I prefer to give the theist all the ammunition, all the toys to play with.
Benefit of a doubt. It's like, let's say everything you're saying is legit or is true. Outside of granting ultimately their conclusions, which is that miracles happen and that God exists, I prefer to say, okay, let's say Jesus did exist. Let's say that we didn't only have Paul's letter attesting to the 500. Let's say that we had a lot of resources that showed that, forget the 500, let's make it 1,000. Yeah.
Here's why it doesn't work, because we have all these psychological explanations that are well documented that will better explain this phenomena. Bereavement delusions, mass hysteria, wishful thinking, different forms of emotional factors that will play into people having misconceptions about what they think they're perceiving. A talking point that I'm sure all of us have heard from the Christians is, well, why would somebody die for what they knew was a lie?
Exactly.
And my response is, nobody's claiming they were lying. We're claiming they were mistaken.
And we don't even know they died. We don't even know if some of these people existed in the first place.
Right.
And I think it's important this is a debate that needs to go on between atheists. I don't like debating mythicism with Christians because it's such a non-starter. And again, they can't even grant things that aren't even controversial in scholarly circles. They can't even go there. They just can't give an inch. It's fun to have that dialogue with our fellow atheists and explain why I think this is where the evidence leads. Not that it matters. It's like, but everything we learn in the back and forth between the Jesus historicists and the Jesus mythicists helps us better understand just how shaky the grounds that Christianity is on, and helps call the bluff of anybody who says they know exactly how Jesus wants you to behave or think or vote. And I think that, if nothing else, makes that whole debate worth happening.
Yeah,
and that's where I land. I mean, it's like I'm with the man. I think it's great. You know, thank you, David. It's just really, just really awesome. That's I so much respect that, and I was so happy to be able to be on Skeptic Haven and ask that question with the man himself. Nailed, myths, all that stuff. It was fun. Anyway, welcome. I wanted to put that out there after particularly after the end of Maya's stream there. I was like, oh, you know, Jesus myths, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to make any headway with a Christian. As much as you'd like to, you're not going to make any headway with a Christian on whether Jesus was real, not real, a myth, or whatever. As much as you'd like to see that be a forceful and convincing argument to someone who believes in the faith, because it's the faith. They believe what they believe. I mean, the elephant in the room is the faith. And the faith can lead people to do good things or bad things, depending on how they shade it. Again, it's not a question of whether the man existed. You can take it as a given that a believer believes the creed. Believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under punishment. I mean, all that stuff. You can take it as they're going to believe that. The question is, what do they do with that belief? There are Christians who take that belief and fight for social justice, because Jesus said, feed the hungry, clothe the naked. Lift up the poor. Sell all of your belongings and follow me. Pick up your cross and follow me. There are those Christians. There are also those Christians who say, fuck the hungry. Fuck the poor. Fucked are those that hunger and search after righteousness. They're fucked up. They don't have an airplane. What do you do with that? What do you do with your beliefs? Same goes for atheists. What do you do with your beliefs? Where do you go? Is your I was talking on again Skeptic Haven. Where do you go? Where do you take those beliefs? Where's morality come from for you? And the question we were talking about earlier was what's a just war? How does that intersect? Because either from an atheist perspective or from a Christian perspective, you can make the case that war is always immoral because it involves killing, because it involves the taking of life, because what it does is not for it does not promote well-being. There's no possible case you can make for any war that promotes well-being. What you can say is, if you evaluate the positions of the parties to war in terms of, is this side promoting well-being for their people? Is this side promoting well-being for their people? And where's the intersection there, right? That's where you can possibly make a justification for curtailing the activities of this group of people as opposed to this group of people. And I think that's actually easier to do from a non-belief perspective, because once God is involved, once that overarching archon of one who demands that these are the steps towards morality, towards truth, then you can look to the Bible and kill all the Amalekites. So, SR was staking out a position of objective morality, and my position is there is no objective morality in this circumstance, because God himself, the concept of God, is itself subjective. If anything that comes out of consciousness is subjective, then I posit that God comes out of human consciousness. And so, the God that arises out of that consciousness is a projection of your own set of beliefs, or a group's set of beliefs. And you can skip that part. The group has a collective set of beliefs that they ascribe to a deity that they can't demonstrate actually exists, but they ascribe that to a deity and they call that objective morality, when in fact it's just a reflection of that group's beliefs and what they hew to. Now, if they hew to a principle of do no harm, if they hew to a principle of the greater good, if they hew to a principle of well-being, then they're closer to where we're at as a social species, as a social group. And the question becomes, where do you draw the line as to who's in and who's out of the social group?
For me as an atheist, it's a lot easier to include more people in that group. I harbor no ill will towards Christians, towards Jews, towards Hindus, towards Muslims, towards Jains, towards Buddhists, towards Taoists, towards I just don't, because I don't hew to any of the strictures imposed upon any one of these groups by their God. But I do oppose atheists who are cruel, Christians who are cruel, people who will not expand the concept of siblinghood on a world of 8 billion people in terrific danger of losing the forest for the trees in terms of climate change, in terms of war. What are we doing? Killing each other. You know, when you break it down into individual conflicts, you can examine each side's willingness, ability to see each other as human. And what they stand for. In my view, the Russian national myth involves Kyiv. Society, Russian society, a good deal of Russian identity comes out of Kyiv. Same thing with the Serbs in Kosovo. A lot of their national identity comes out of things that happened 1,000 years ago. Same thing in the Middle East. Same thing in a lot of places. People's identities arise from a concept that implicitly excludes another. And it makes it tough. It really does make it tough. P-Town, sorry, I'm sort of waxing on here. I meant to be lighthearted, but I sort of got I got wrapped up in the is Jesus real or not thing at the end of my stream, and I just sort of like, oh shit, I've got David Fitzgerald right here. I'm going to bring him out and ask him that question. So anyway, let me just get off that tip right away and you know, launch into trying to be a little bit more lighthearted. This is November. This is my 69th November of life. I know my ads. I know. There's no way it wasn't coming up. But I had David Fitzgerald. It was like a total Marshall McLuhan, Annie Hall, Marshall McLuhan, Woody Allen. God, that asshole. But I hate to say it, but it was a great scene in film. It was a great moment. Just like, I've got Marshall McLuhan right here, and you know nothing of my work, etc., and so forth. So it's really fun. It's like I'm sitting there watching this. Well, you know, mythicism is really important. It's not. It really isn't. You know, to me, it's not. I know it's like Godless Engineer's really into it. I know that Oz is really into it. I know it's all, but I don't see as it makes any difference in the grand scheme of things. I know that you can make the case, well, you know, if it's all a bunch of bullshit, then it's all a bunch of bullshit. And it's like, I'm not really sure that it matters to P-Town, who just left. And by the way, thanks for coming by. I don't really think it matters. At the end of the day, the myth is strong enough that it impacts people's daily lives. And again, this is where I come down. It's not your beliefs that matter. It's what you do with them. What do you fucking do with them? You know? So anyway, it's my 69th November. Ain't that something? That that young person in that photograph, I'll tell you, I remember her. She was me. It's really funny looking back to that 17 going on 18 trans girl. Who knew? Believe me. Who'd told a fair number of folks, including her parents, who couldn't be. I wouldn't talk about being the impossible girl. I'm impossible. You're impossible, I was told. I am impossible. Still impossible. I'm not really. I'm just me. Always was. So yeah, on the 30th of November, I'll be hoping for a 70th November next year at this time. Yes, I know, AR. 69. Nice. Mikey Famine told me at the beginning of the, well, a year ago, it's like, hey, I'm going to be 69. Mikey Famine goes, nice. Here's what you need to do. You need to build up a following on TikTok. You need to go on TikTok every day and say, I'm 69 and 1 day old. Nice. And I tried it for a while. I think I got maybe 3 days in and then got sick and tired of it and just stopped. It was a nice conceit anyway. It was a nice conceit. I kind of got a kick out of it. I think it was fun. But also, all right, so it's like, so on the 30th, I start that 70th year of life. And on the 12th, I will start the 21st year of life, properly configured. So I guess that means I'll be able to drink legally and and all. But yeah, 21 years ago on the 12th of November, I was in Neenah, Wisconsin, under the care of a wonderful little man who was incredibly talented in genital surgery and did right by me. So happily celebrating all of those things. And in the meanwhile, just trying to get by and failing miserably. Yeah, I have some successes, failures. A long, strange trip. I'm in a very queer place financially right now. It's an extremely queer place financially. I just like I got like $25. It's awesome. Uh, Fortunately, I've got a job that it's gonna, bring in a little bit of cash pretty quick. But yeah, it's been hard. So, anybody wants to help me pay my internet bill, check out the links in the description. Drop a penny in the penny in the penny in the tin. There's a link, by the way, for anybody who wants to jump in here and talk about any old thing. I was kind of gonna let P-Town come up here and convince me I'm wrong about all the stuff I was talking all the serious stuff I was talking about earlier. But that guy, he just wants to save the world. He wants to save the poor fallen sinners like myself who clearly will, you know, clearly have lost the way. But here's the thing. I'm let's be realistic, folks. When you're 70 years old, the specter of death seems a little bit more imminent. And that's okay. Really is. Because quite honestly, and quite realistically, death's always with us. I mean, it's a truism out of the Bible. We know not the hour nor the day. And that's referring, of course, to the glorious reconstruction, resurrection, et cetera, and so forth. But really, we don't. There's no guarantees. And in other literature, it's like you could go hmm. Let me see if I can do this right. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps on in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools this way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Yeah, Macbeth. Not a particularly cheery thing. But let me tell you something. It's like at some point you got to say, so what? It's true. The cool thing about that speech is the use of tomorrow and then today and yesterday, all our yesterdays. It's like, it's, you know, there's something inspiring about language. There's something inspiring about having a heritage of tales, whether they're told by idiots or saints. There's something inspiring about having a tale to tell. There's something inspiring about being open to the tales told by other idiots and not insisting that our tale is the right tale, the proper tale, the only tale, the tale of salvation. And to me, those tales are pernicious tales. The tale of fallen humanity, hopeless sinners, this wasn't a tale told to me in my religious tradition, although it did play a part. But the hopeless sinner bit, thankfully, wasn't foundational to my upbringing in the faith. Quite the opposite. But I see so many, I see so much impact from what is Reconstructionist Christianity, fundamentalist Christianity. I won't say evangelical Christianity because evangel is, spreading the good news, etc. And that was certainly a part of my upbringing. Well, spread the good news of Christ. Go into the world, do good works, feed the hungry, visit people in prison, do all of this stuff, and your great will be your reward in heaven. But that ain't the beliefs that are being propounded in the political sphere as much as they should be, as much as they once were. You see as I was growing up, the more admirable expressions of the Christian faith were those delivered by uh, Ralph Abernathy, by Bayard Rustin, a Quaker, by Martin Luther King, a Baptist, by Malcolm X, a Muslim. By John Fitzgerald Kennedy, a Catholic. Faith in the human spirit, faith in the capacity of the human spirit to overcome injustice in this world today. Those were the flavors of Christianity that informed my youth, informed my upbringing. Those are the flavors of Christianity that allowed my parents to allow me to go to Washington, D.C. in November 1969 to protest the injustice of the Vietnam War. Those are the flavors of Christianity that led my brother-in-law to the Edmund Pettus Bridge as a seminary student. And those are that's the faith, that's the flavor, that's the stuff. Not of Christianity and not of Islam and not of Hinduism and not of the faith of Gandhi. That's the faith in humanity that can save the world. I want to ask the chat right now. Do you suppose I can make that case to P-Town? Because P-Town's sitting backstage right now. And if P-Town comes on stage, I'm going to ask him, "What are you doing to make life better for your neighbor?" What are you doing to make life better for your neighbor, P-Town?
Oh, I'm on the stage. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What have I done for my neighbor?
No, what are you doing?
Sure. Well, can I talk a little bit about what I have done for my neighbors? That's okay. Because I don't talk about it much, but there's a series of things I've done for my neighbors. I'll start with one that pops in my head. There was a lady who was really lonely, who lived next to us, who I spent two evenings a week. I played Jim Rummy with her. She now lives in California. Before that, I spent time with a couple elderly folks, watching really old movies. There was a lady who became homeless, who I'm still really close to, who got kicked out of the apartment that I was in a few years ago. I paid for her stuff because she was really connected to her stuff for 6 years. They got up to $600 a month for that storage unit over where I live. That's just how much things cost.
Sure.
But those are trivial things. I mean,
they're not.
No, they're not.
They're not trivial, P-Town. They're not trivial.
Some of them are Christians now, so some of them are still kind of confused about it. They're not where I would like to see them be because there's a lot of mythicism associated with their beliefs. But you can see
P-Town,
that there's
P-Town, P-Town, P-Town. Does
yeah,
it matter whether they're Christians or not?
it does to me as a Christian, because
But that's
well,
but
mhm.
that's you working on your own agency, right? That's got nothing to do with where they are.
Well, I think that's
P-Town, are you aware of the verse that says when you're doing charity, you shouldn't let your right hand know what the left hand is doing? That you shouldn't have a motivation to
right. I
convert.
don't use it to proselytize to them. They just know that I'm a Christian, just intrinsically. I don't, you know. I mean, I come and I put up a front against the atheists and stuff, but that's not how you bring people to Christ. The Bible explicitly, pretty much says it. That's not what I do. Is plays a kind of a different role, and it's not something I don't think God's going to have me assigned to do forever. The way that people, you know, I don't want to put God in a box, but the way that people see Christ is they see what Christians do for one another as well as other people, and they see us celebrate something that is at the roots of who we are and what we believe and is the essence of where we're going, which
Well,
far
no,
outweighs anything in this world.
Let me posit this to you.
Mhm.
In bringing people to kindness, would you not view that as bringing people to your vision of Christ? Is that your vision of Christ, is kindness?
Not entirely, because a lot of, I mean, at the same time, Jesus was like one of the most offensive people of all
You're
time.
a goat. You're a goat.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, you
You're a
saw
goat.
today.
Your own scripture tells you you're a goat.
I don't
You
know where
should
you're
be
going.
satisfied. You should be satisfied in the kindness you give.
Yeah, I mean, that's what really attracts people and wins people is when they see Christians getting together and they observe how nice Christians are. I mean, one of the things that I have found,
Do you
and
think
this is from
atheists can't do that? I mean,
no, I don't want to
do you
speak
not see
against atheists in
do you
this regard.
not see the Christ in the atheist? Do you not see the Christ in the atheist? Do you not see the the
I
the compassion in the atheist who does the same things you do?
I do think that there are good people on all sides. What I was going to say is
But there's no side. There's
around,
only one side. The side is the side of humanity. The side is the side of the side of goodness. The side is the
well,
side
talking
of compassion. Is it
the
not?
the the one there is something that I've heard from the people that I have helped that they have told me, and this is separate, is it's amazing how much the Christians help me. This is not me. This is what I've heard in the few from the few people I've heard it from that I've been involved with. They say
Oh,
it's amazing how much the Christians help me when I'm in need. And I don't I have no evidence for this, no, like other than this is just what I've experienced. And that
I
was
mean,
nice.
I've
I mean,
sure, sure, but why are you building the walls? There shouldn't be walls. There shouldn't be walls. There's Christians here, Jews here, Hindus here.
I'm
This
not
this
I don't think I'm building the walls. I'm just being
isn't
honest.
kindness in and of itself, isn't kindness and compassion in and of itself the the foundation of your faith?
Well, no, I would rather you hate me, Stephanie, and go to heaven. I would much rather that than the alternative. I think
There's
that
no room for
what
hate.
love
There's
and
no room for
happiness,
hatred in my
what
heart.
being nice
There
is
isn't.
as a Christian, what
I
being
don't know
nice
how
is as
you
a
can. I
Christian
don't
isn't.
know how you can call yourself a Christian and have room for hatred in your heart.
Well, I don't think I hate anybody. I mean, God says he hates evil. Do I hate evil? Yeah, I hate evil. I don't hate people. I don't know.
But
But what?
what's evil? But what's evil? Are queer people evil?
Willie, no, I don't look at people as being evil.
Does
I think that
God
they're
think that queer people are evil?
no, of course not.
Um, is the sin extant?
God hates the sin, yeah.
And what is the sin?
This is where I'm not entirely sure on. Because I think we've talked about this before. I I go to Numbers 1, and I think you can have judgment upon a culture. It's my position to say, for those of you without sin, let's see you cast the first stone. I think
You do realize
everyone is sinful.
you do realize that there are an awful lot of stones being cast in my direction these days.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. And I mean, you'll see me standing up for what's right.
I don't understand why I need to accept the definition of sin as provided by your book. Because your book is not consistent in its definitions. And it's certainly not consistent with other traditions. You see, the difference between you and I is that I view the words of Shakespeare and the words of the King James Bible to be functionally equivalent. They're stories. They're stories. They're even written in roughly the same time period. Actually, Shakespeare's a little bit earlier than King James, but there's a little bit of overlap there.
Did he even actually have Shakespeare play a role in it? I can't remember.
Huh? No.
Oh, forget it. I can't.
But the
I just
language
can't
is the same. The language is the same, and the language is the same. It's the same culture, basically. It's the same time period in English society, and the same set of mores, same set of stuff. But and the KJV is poorly translated anyways. It misses an awful lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, its errors are at least well known. Like I said,
Well, it is,
I
but
use the
the
King
thing
James
is that
because
any translation is impoverished by the fact that there are
it's
so
not
many
English.
puns.
Yeah,
Well,
you're
there
right.
are so many puns in the original Hebrew that are and they
You just can't do it in English.
can't be appreciated. You can't do it.
Mhm.
Like the whole pun on Earth is hysterical if you know what ADM means in Hebrew. The connotation between red ochre and blood and earth and all of that. It's really funny. It's
Well,
funny.
everything almost.
Well, it's funny. It's punny and funny, and you can't glean that from the name. I mean, the name it would be the proper translation. Really, would be the first man was named Mud.
Oh,
Or
I see what you're
blood.
talking about. Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
ochre.
or you
Well,
know,
it's really
and,
impossible to
and
fully translate because it's of the dust of the earth, the red dust, yeah.
you know, but this is the thing, mate. These are stories.
Play.
And really, you know, I am delighted to hear that you, in your own life, do these things for other people out
course,
of,
and
you
and
know,
and 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 Stephanie, I mean, I don't have to say this on air, but I'll help you out. Even though I'm gonna be
well,
broke myself soon. I want you to know
you don't
that,
need to. You sure don't need to. I'm.
well, I want you to know this, that do I don't know how to frame this. I have doubts just like anybody. I mean, but there's it at the same time, there's probably nothing in my life that I'm more sure about. And it's not just what Christ has done for me, but it's that I have something that's a foundation in my life. I mean, all of these things, all the worldly issues, all the stuff, I have
You're gonna
something to
make
fall
me
back on.
start singing "How Firm a
I
Foundation is
just,
Jesus Christ our Lord." Oh yeah, you're gonna make me go
I
there,
don't
aren't
know,
you? Wait a
but
minute.
I want to.
Hold on, P Town. Hold the fuck on. I'm gonna do something just for you. It's gonna take me just maybe a second or two because I've got OBS. Thank God for OBS. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. I love it. I love it. I love it. But you know, I'm just gonna put myself in my home church. This
I don't. I didn't.
behind me is the for all y'all watching here. Is this is the sanctuary of the Church of All Nations in at 85 Shawmut Avenue in Boston, Massachusetts. It is now under the Massachusetts Turnpike. It is the sanctuary of my home church. This is the church I grew up in. Up there, right up there, my dad used to preach, and my grandfather did too. And down here, let's see, I got to get out of the way. Ella France Jones was at this organ, and it was it was like a five stage pipe organ with the pipes were glorious. You can sort of see them hidden behind all of that stuff. There's this wonderful triptych up here. Yeah, I mean,
That stuff's all way too religious for me. But I didn't grow up
no,
in a
well,
church. You know, I didn't grow up in a Christian family. I don't know what denomination were you, if there was
Methodist.
one. Methodist. Okay.
Methodist. Yeah. Methodist. We were Methodists. And you know, but Methodists out of the social gospel tradition that believed in following the dictates of the gospel. Like my dad would take me on rounds visiting the state penitentiary in Concord, Massachusetts, visiting people in prison. And my grandfather started Goodwill Industries, which was all about feeding the hungry and clothing the naked at the time. It's not anymore, by the way. I'm not advocating people give money to Goodwill.
Oh, it's the same Goodwill?
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're about profit, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah, they are. They're all about
It's a
profit, and they're all
business.
about it's a business, and that's the. And my grandfather actually said, if they ever, eventually
the downfall of the industries would be separation from the church, and that eventually happened, and all of this stuff. But I don't. The point is that it's what you do. It's what you do
Well, I just want to make
for
it
the sake
clear.
of your fellow man and not for the sake of God, because you invent your God. I know it's written down. I know there's scripture. I know there's all this stuff. But at the end of the day, all of those words came from somewhere, and they did not come from a divine source directly. They didn't. Hashem did not write the Bible, either the Old or the New Testament. And I say Hashem because I'm being respectful. The name, it means the name. Jews do not pronounce the name. It's either Adonai, which is the Lord, or Hashem.
So I just want to say,
And
I think, I believe that for you, I just want you to know that you don't have to change yourself to be a Christian. God made you.
I did have to change myself to be myself, though. And that's
That was a good one.
contrary to Christian teaching.
Well, I believe that you don't have to change yourself, that God will make you more of yourself.
And
Transform.
God did. I mean, one could argue, and in my view, it's like, yeah, I know a number of queer and trans people who are deeply religious and deeply, I know pastors who are deeply religious. Those people are being excoriated. Those people have lost parishes. They've lost a source of income. They've lost all sorts of stuff just for being themselves, the person that God made them. That religious people would say.
And like I said, I have a different view than most. I believe that it's a judgment upon a culture, and it's still offensive, and I'm sorry for that.
Huh?
But that's what I think Scripture hints to. And
and there is where we part ways, P-Town, because the only thing.
Well, I don't know how much we part ways.
Well, the only thing that would cause someone to believe that it is an offense against God is what's written in this book. And you can find other ways of interpreting what's written in this book. And the proof of that is that there are hundreds of different interpretations of what's written in the fucking book. So who am I to believe? Am I to believe the Hebrew, the original Greek? And even at that, it's still a human interpretation of what people believe, what people project their morality onto. God is a concept. It's a human concept. It's not a physical reality.
Sorry, but that's not true. the Bible's defined, and God is God, and there's only one way, and that's
Okay.
through Jesus Christ, Stephanie.
That's
And
no, it's not. It's not. It's not because there are, there's Krishna consciousness, right? I mean, you should read the Bhagavad Gita. It's very, very, it's a beautiful poem. It's a beautiful poem that talks about duty. You familiar with the story at all?
I haven't read it, no.
Well, let me tell you the story. I'll do my best. And I'm not a Hindu and I'm not a Hindu scholar and I don't read Sanskrit. It's like, I don't know. But here's the story. The story is that there were two families. I'll give you the context because the Bhagavad Gita is a part of a larger story. The context of the larger story is this. There was a king in India who had two wives. I'm just losing my just lost my ears. Hang on a sec.
I should give you a heads up. My phone's gonna die pretty soon.
Or at least I got at least one ear. Had two wives. I think this is right. Anyway, had two families basically. One and he died. And he left the kingdom to one of the families and disinherited the other. And that was against the tradition that was against tradition, etc. And so the Pandavas, the disinherited folks, made their case that they should at least have a portion of the stuff. The other guys said, "Nuh-uh, you don't get nothing. You don't get anything." And one of the Pandava played a game of dice against the other one to decide who was going to have the kingdom. And the Pandavas lost. But they managed to the five Pandava brothers managed to keep out of the whole thing Draupadi, who was this wonderful woman that they shared as a wife. So anyway, they go through this whole thing. Eventually, it winds up in a war. Like they're fighting over the kingdom. And Krishna, who was the avatar incarnation of Vishnu, the preserver. Laura, I'll bring you in a second. Makes a deal and says, one side may have my armies, may have my full strength. The other side may have me as an advisor. Well, the Pandavas say, we want your army. And no, I'm sorry, the other side, not the Pandavas, but the other side, whose name I forget, says, we want your armies. The Pandavas, Arjuna, the warrior of the Pandavas, says, I want you as my advisor. So Krishna becomes Arjuna's charioteer. And on the eve of the great battle, the horns are blowing all over the place. Arjuna rides out in the chariot with Krishna and stops in the middle of the whole thing. And this is the Bhagavad Gita, and starts conversation with his charioteer, who is the avatar of Vishnu. And he starts asking questions, and he starts out by saying, I can't do this. I can't go into this battle. On the other side are my cousins. On the other side are the people who trained me. On the other side are people I love. On the other side are people who are dear to me. I can't do this. And Krishna says, they've disinherited you. On your side, there are people who are equally dear to you. And at the end of the day, it is your duty to fulfill the terms of the life you're living. It's your duty to be who you are. It is the duty it is your duty to follow through. It's a good story.
I'll look into that. I'll have to.
It's a good story, but it's just a story, and it's just a story the same way that the tales that you are familiar with are a story, and they inform you in, I don't agree with the whole notion of Dharma any more than I agree with the myth of Christianity. The story of Christianity. I don't believe in God the Father Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, and Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary. I don't believe in that.
How about this?
No.
I'll leave you with something else then. I won't do the Christian spell on you. I wonder how much better the world would be off if people were more concerned about the world after this. Anyway.
I think the world is better off when people care about the world, when people care about each other, and leave behind these ridiculous notions of faith and belief in other things other than each other.
Well, have a good night, Stephanie. God bless.
You too. Thanks for coming by, and thanks for listening to me.
No problem. See you guys.
Take care. I'm with you, Stephanie. It's I mentioned this with Beck earlier, and it's sort of similar. So, you know, I do painting with the war games and stuff like that. So the company that makes the models that I and my friends play with, Games Workshop, they have like
Oh yeah,
they've got their
they're
factory
cool.
next to their factory. They've got you know, like museum is the wrong word. You know, it's got like a shop and a, you know, just cabinets and cabinets of stuff. You know, massive dioramas. It's brilliant. And I listened to a couple of people say, "Oh, I could never do that," and it's like you need to shake that mentality away, because, you know, if you're saying you could never do that, you're giving up trying to push your boundaries. Maybe you have the capability to do better than they have, but you've sort of mentally given up on it. And I see the same sort of thing, you know, of like, you know, when you got the Christians and they think of this world as a transient sort of middle ground, rather than living it for what it is and living your best life. It's like, yeah, but I mean, you know, I'm going to get a new one after it, so what does it matter?
Yeah, in my view, it's like, what do you got to lose? You know, you can be nice here, here and now, and not be an asshole. You know, it's like, what?
Wow, no, isn't that amazing? You know, there's nothing forcing anybody to be a jerk.
Yeah, this is the thing. I just don't understand that the thing I it's like P-Town may be a wonderful human being, but that whole thing that I gotta stop and say you're sinning. You need to atone and change through being washed in the blood and all of this stuff.
Which is kind of disgusting.
It's to me, it's pernicious. It's like, it's, you know, teaching people to hate themselves.
Yeah.
Is terrible. I mean, to me, Christianity is a psychosis-inducing religion. It's like, we are all sinners, and life doesn't mean anything. The only thing that is meaningful in life is death.
It's kind of ironic that, you know, their mentality is they need to crawl on their knees and beg for forgiveness for living the life that they have, you know, what they've got. That just seems so toxic to me.
I'm not sure. And it's like, you know, and the myth doesn't even make any sense, you know, that a mud man wakes up, gets shown all the critters in the world, and says, well, you know, I'm not having too much fun with them. So the guy who made the mud man says, all right, well, that's fine. Let me just put you to sleep and yank something out of you, and I'm gonna create something that's gonna be pleasing to you, and that'll be the mud woman. Except it's not the mud woman; it's flesh of my flesh and you know, blood of my blood and all of that shit. And then it's like, you know, I got these two trees here. Don't fuck with them. And then a talking snake talks to the mud woman and says, you know what, you know, this guy's full of shit. It's like, go ahead, eat. And then God, who already knew all along everything that was going to happen in the universe, gets pissed off when they see the couple naked and says, wow, you ate that shit, didn't you? Like I told you not to. And so get the fuck out of here. And therefore, from time immemorial, the entire human race is lost in sin. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Oh, I mean, I came up with one years ago, which is like, you know, Adam and Eve were set up to fail. You know, so it's like, you know, so God hates sin, except for, you know, let's go through the list. Why put the tree of knowledge in the garden? You know, he created the garden. He created the tree of knowledge. He created fruit that must not be eaten. He created and allowed the serpent into the garden. He allowed the serpent to speak. Strange thing of an animal. And if sin didn't exist before the fall, Adam and Eve couldn't possibly have known the difference between right and wrong. You can't sin if it doesn't exist yet. And so God punished them for not understanding the thing that, you know,
You see, here's the thing. You don't have the knowledge of good and evil, right? Before you eat from the tree, you don't have the knowledge of good and evil. The only thing you're supposed to do is obey. But you don't even fucking know whether it's wrong to disobey or not, because you don't have the knowledge of good and evil. Like, what do you mean? You know, it just doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. But yet we're all supposed to feel that guilt. Yeah. And that guilt is preached, or it certainly was, particularly in Calvinist tradition, it's preached all the time. And it's fundamental to the whole notion. Death came into the world on account of that, right? And so there's the verse, since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection and the life, which is the foundational thing of Christianity. So no original sin, no Christianity. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. And it's not even what the fucking it's not even what, if Jesus existed, what he likely believed, because that's not really a strain in it's not a strong strain anyway in Jewish tradition at the time.
Yeah.
None of it makes sense. And really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What matters is the way you treat people in the here and now. So when I get a Christian like P-Town coming in and basically saying, well, you know, you're fallen, and it's like you're disobeying word of God and all of this. God doesn't hate you, but he hates your life. You know, it's like, what are you talking about? I don't see how you can do that. I don't see how you can live with that with that dissonance there. I'll help you out of charity and all of this, but
you know,
but
helping out
doing me any favors.
You know, it always makes me chuckle when I see the sort of Christian street preachers or whatever and saying awful, horrible things. And, you know, one of the big things is, you know, like, look after poor people and feed the hungry and stuff like that, you know.
I think I gotta get out of church.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a believer, fortunately. So I've never had to worry about the guilt problem. You know, and I came up with my own reasons for what is ethical and unethical. You know, for example, you know, lying and stealing. So when I was a kid, I don't remember how old I was, maybe 8 or something, and I stole a couple of cookies from the cookie jar. And it got noticed, and my mum said, "Did you do it?" And I said, "No." And so Dad comes home from work, and you know, it's like, "Did you take any cookies out of the cookie jar?" "No," he says. And so my mum was like, next thing you know, it's a confrontation with me, you know. And it's all reason, it's rationality, you know. And she's like, hand on my hips. Well, I didn't have them, and your dad didn't have them, and the dog didn't get up on the, get on the top and unscrew the jar. So there's only one person left, isn't there? The logic, Wallace. It's like, yeah, did you do it? Yeah, I got punished, and rightfully so. So, couple of, for few months later, I don't remember how long. A couple of cookies go missing out the cookie jar. My mum says, "Did you do it?" I said, "No," and I hadn't done it. And so what happens is, Dad comes home at tea time. Guess what Laura did? Previous life, but I'm not going to dead name myself. I had him, he said. And so, I was like, Mum was guilty that she'd accused me and that kind of thing. But what did I learn? I learned that if you steal, you get in trouble. If you lie, you get into trouble. And even if you're telling the truth and you got a reputation for lying, you get accused of it anyway.
Yep.
Of course, there is the Garrick version of this, which is never to tell the same lie twice. But
or if you're going to tell a lie, tell a big one.
Confuse the hell out of your enemies. That's a Ferengi. Oh no, sorry. Every once in a while, tell the truth. It confuses the hell out of your enemies. That was it. That's a Ferengi rule of acquisition. But I once asked a street preacher, I said, "Do you think lying is always wrong? Lying and stealing, are they always wrong under every circumstance and every situation?" And he says, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I can give you an example of both lying and stealing where it is the most appropriate, moral thing to do." And the first one I said lying. I said, "No, Mr. Nazi, there aren't any Jews in my attic." There are Jews in my attic, but I know what's going to happen if they get found. Right. And so by lying, I am literally saving their lives.
Right.
Stealing. If I steal the gun off a friend that, is showing signs of mental illness and he's like talking about doing a mall shooting or something, if I steal his gun and he can't do it, I am saving lives. And, often the person that is on the end of his bullets, or my friend who might be on the end of his own, like kill himself kind of thing. So by lying, that's saving lives. And, I said, surely that those are examples where lying and stealing are the most ethical, life-saving things to do. Don't you think that is the reasonable, form of lying? And he's basically, no, it's still wrong.
Yeah, well,
that gets into a topic that I was talking about with on secular, or rather Skeptic Haven with SR's Secular Rarity earlier, which is the whole concept of the just war. It's like you need to evaluate the larger questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that requires. I think that requires putting things in a context that you can. I don't know what the right word is, that fits the larger question of the least harm and the larger question of well-being. I think that's where things land there. Anyway, it's getting late here. I should go to sleep. I appreciate you coming in, Laura.
I'm sorry, I turned up earlier. It's a pity I didn't turn up earlier. How have you been? A quick question, guys.
I've been all right. I mean, I'm struggling a bit, but I'm
getting through somehow or another. And I'm kind of tickled and at the same time sort of going through the whole looking back on life thing. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I hope to make it through. I hope to pull through somehow or another.
Do you know, I only have one regret in my life. Now, I've done things that I regret, but more, they've always been a learning experience. You know, I've found something worthwhile in the learning of that mistake. I only have one that, you know, I made, and it is a trans one. So when I was 15, I borrowed some of my mum's skirts, and it got noticed. And we had a confrontation again. And my mum's like, "Why'd you do it?" And I said, "I don't know." And I didn't know. It was like an instinct. I had to express myself like a girl in the same way as the need to breathe, you know. And she's like, "You must know." And I really wasn't offering anything, you know. I wasn't giving anything back to feed off, you know. And it's like, "Well, you must know." And I said nothing. And then she just blurted out. She said, "What do you want to be, a girl or something?" And I paused and I said no. But in my head, I was thinking, yes, I think. And I didn't understand it. You know, I didn't have the tools to understand it. You know, it's not like I go to the library, which is where I would get most of my information, and say, "Hi, have you got any books about boys who want to be girls?" You know, incredibly embarrassing and, you know, not the done thing. And so I hid it. I hid it for a long time. You know, so that's my only regret. Because my parents, they loved me. If I'd have said yes, you know, they would have got help, you know. They would have helped me through it. I mean, hopefully they stop me from it, but...
Well, you see, I did say yes. Matter of fact, the way it worked was I was quite young, and like about 3.5, because at about 2.5, I had a rather serious burn injury on my left foot, and part of my rehabilitation was picking up marbles off the floor with my toes so that the scar tissue didn't rope up and cause the toes to be constantly pointing in the wrong direction. So that was a task, right? And I was, and it was a game, you know. I'd pick up marbles with my toes, pick them up as a little kid, put them in my hand, put them in a bucket, put them in a cup, and then after doing that, my mom would throw the stuff back on the floor, and I'd do that again. And in one of those sessions, she said, "Good boy," and I said, "No, girl."
Yeah.
I didn't have the language. I just didn't. I didn't have anything. I just said, "No, girl." And she was horrified. like, what? What is this child doing? And it was like, don't say that. Don't say that. That's impossible.
Yeah.
That's impossible. And there were a few other incidents like that, just like that was the first one. People say, "You can't possibly remember that." It's like, well, I remember burning my foot, and I remember being in the hospital, visual memory of all of this. I remember all of those events. So, and it's a trauma memory, right?
Yeah.
And that was equally a trauma memory. It was like, oh, shit. And then you know, there were a series of those events, and my mom really kept that whole thing secret for a long time. And I didn't find out until a few years ago that it was an open secret, that she talked to her sister about it and all of this other stuff. And like my cousin was clued in on the whole thing. And I was like, wow. But it was it was definitely not a thing you talked about in 1957.
Yeah.
And there was no you know, the whole drill was just not a thing. And so I got, you know, I got taught that I got basically taught to despise that part of myself. So it was, you know, it was
Damaging.
yeah. I mean, it took years. It didn't go away. It doesn't go away.
No. No, I had that. I left home when
Doesn't go.
Yeah, I left home when I was 17, and I lived in a hostel for a couple of years. And you know, I used to go to charity shops, like welfare shops in the US, and you know, pick up dresses or whatever. And you know, it was almost like, it's funny. I would walk past the window. I'd see something in the window. And it's like, oh, that looks nice. Does it fit? But in order to make that decision, I would walk past the shop several times on the pretense of just idly walking by. And then I would wait until, you know, it was like 5 to 5 when the store's shut, and just go in, put my money on, you know, take it. So I grab it, stick it on the table, put the money on, have the exact money on it, because you'd see the tag in the window, and then my bag home. You know, honestly, people have done bank raids that have that have been quicker. Aren't as quick. But I used to have this really bizarre thing where, you know, I'd just be sat on the sofa watching TV, wearing a cute outfit or something, and I'd just get a wave of shame wash over me, as if to say, "What on earth are you doing?" Yep. And I had to get changed. That's it. Time was over. And the craziest version of this was, I lived next to a main road, and there was some guy had stolen a car or something, and the cops were chasing him. You know, there was a car chase basically. So cops on the back of this guy. And, you know, you hear all the sirens go by. And then the police helicopter flew right over my building. My balcony windows wide open. And I had to go and get changed, because I was scared that 5 minutes later there'd be a police officer at my door saying, "Why are you wearing a dress?"
Right. You know, and that's I think that's, I don't think there's anybody watching right now, but that's absolutely a feature of the trans experience at a certain point in time, and this is why I get really quite passionate about trans kids, because I was one, and I don't want. It's just so hard, and people know better now. People know better.
Yeah.
You know, the progress in terms of recognizing this experience as part of the human experience has come so far in the last 60 years. Come so far.
I actually feel
it's possible for people to actually get the compassion and get the care that they need.
Yeah.
We're not damaged people, but we have been damaged.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see more people damaged.
No.
Don't. Anywho, thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. And I appreciate everybody who's hung around. Kentucky Atheist has been around for pretty much the whole time. We're into the wee hours of the morning here on the East Coast of the United States of America.
I'm in the UK. I haven't had yet.
You're just up early. That's all. That's up with you.
I slept a lot Sunday, so now I'm wide awake now.
Yeah.
I'm doing some really good painting work, so I'm happy with that.
Cool.
I got a game I'm playing tomorrow, so I want to get a model painted for that.
Yeah, I love your paintings. I love your models. They're really cool. Really cool. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this up, and I appreciate everybody coming by. My links anyway are in the description, and anybody who wants to help me pay off my internet bill, go drop a coin in the cup if you would, and it would be great. But other than that, I'll see you next time, whenever that may be.
Bye.
Ciao.